Hey, Dan, thanks for having me on. And the question posed here to me is, what's the greatest gift that recovery has given me? Is that right?
That's right. To be the man you always knew you could be.
Awesome. So yeah, my recovery date. I'm a person in long-term successful recovery, and it's November 1st, 1984. I was invited into recovery, Dan, by a judge. He thought it'd be a good idea for me to go to 4 meetings a week for 3 years, and 10 months after doing that, I got into recovery. So I had no idea how lost I was when I got into recovery. I didn't even know I was lost. So um, the greatest gift is that I really feel like God just kind of swooped me up and saved me and placed me in a place where I could heal against my will, while he, did all the work he needed to do on me. So the greatest gift is that I was saved from my disease of addiction and from myself, by a loving and merciful God, and I'll never ever cease to be grateful for that. So the greatest gift is that I've been able to realize the importance of submitting myself to this higher power, to my God, to be used as an instrument, and he sure has done that for the rest of my life, to be used to help other people, other men, other people. And I don't know about you, but some days I pull into my garage and I think, woo, God, you really used me up today. You used every ounce of energy I have, and I'm okay with that, because that's the deal I made, is that I'm third step, so I offer myself every morning, to him to use me as his instrument. He sure does that. So I guess the best gift I've had is to fulfill. I really feel like I'm fulfilling my purpose on the planet, and I've had so many, as you call them, or I call them, God winks or God shots in my whole recovery, and they just never stop. They never stop, where I'm reminded that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing on this planet, and that I'm fulfilling my purpose for being here and being part of the fellowship of the human race, and for being here. So I can't imagine a gift that any person could be given that's more blessed than that, and to have two healthy children beyond that. So those two things, I think, a sense of purpose and fulfilling my plan here on the universe and in my life, and also to have been given the gift of two healthy daughters who mean the world to me. And we have the best relationship ever, and that's such a gift. So that would be my short answer, Dan.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you joining me on this. This is day 29, Jim. This is day 29 of 30 days of interviews with men in recovery. And this week is a special week because I'm really taking it as an opportunity to highlight some of the wonderful men at the Meadows, and the relationship that I've been privileged to have as a senior fellow, and get to meet and connect with and learn and share all of that, with folks like you. And, I know how committed you are to your recovery, to the message of recovery, to recovery advocacy. I know that Greg Williams was just in your neighborhood, and, that you first actually even recognized me, not from anything I've done around the men's stuff, but through the anonymous people. And so I love this idea of purpose, in a sense of purpose. And I talk all the time about how a man who's living his mission is one who's probably aligned to his greatest sense of masculinity, his greatest kind of sense of being a man. And yet, I think you spoke to something really important. How about the idea, being a man in recovery and having a purpose? I've watched a lot of men, I think, take that idea of a purpose and a mission to the point where that is their defining experience at the expense of their relationships and their families. And so you mentioned your daughters, and I've seen the pictures of your beautiful daughters on Facebook, and I know how important you are to them and they are to you. How do you help men, or what can you say to men who they feel that sense of purpose, but it might be a little bit out of balance?
That's a great point and a great question. We do see that all the time. And if I'm not careful, I can get out of balance early. As a matter of fact, I remember early in my recovery, I've been sober almost 32 years, and they're 23 and 21, my daughters, so they'd never seen me in my addiction. But early on in my recovery, when they were newborn and 2 years old, that was so demanding on my time that it flopped the other way. And I neglected my recovery, and I was down to one meeting a week, and wasn't really meeting with my sponsor, and I wasn't doing daily prayer and meditation. And for the first time in my life, way back then, I started experiencing depression, and I had never been depressed before then or after then. And I realized, wow, I am out of balance. I need to focus on my recovery first, self-care first, then I can do both. And I've also had periods of time where I was too much in my recovery and neglecting, that part, my family life. And so balance is hugely important. And I don't find it a challenge when I'm doing appropriate self-care, because I'm not over committed on either side. So the thing that's helped me the most is my morning 30 minutes of morning daily meditation and seeking God first thing in the morning. It seems that ever since I've started that commitment and that practice and ironically, or funny enough, the thing that made the difference is setting my alarm 30 minutes earlier. Woo!
Whoa!
I found it very difficult to squeeze in there until I made that little change.
Isn't that amazing?
As soon as I made that change, I just realized, my day starts now like 45 minutes earlier, and I'm committed to 30 minutes every single morning of reading daily meditation books. I light a candle, I have Indian flute music on, and I read my books. And I do the 3rd step prayer, 7th step prayer, serenity prayer on my knees every single morning. And I seek God with a sense kind of quiet desperation, because I know that if I don't connect and if I don't make that conscious contact with God, as in the 3rd step and the 11th step, that I can't possibly be in balance, and I can't really fulfill my purpose, and I'm going to be out of whack somewhere with ego or self-centeredness or fear or something. But I've found that simple commitment, 30 minutes seeking God by myself with quiet music. Oh, Foxy the cat is there too. But we connect, and then he can take me and use me. And I also use Facebook, social media, as a way to kind of share some of the serenity or solitude or messages that I'm getting during that time of daily meditation, so that immediately I'm kind of letting it flow through me as opposed to just taking.
Yeah.
And that helps me too, is just I'm seeking. I use when I'm doing lectures, sometimes I'll use an extension cord, and I got to plug in. I'm not the source of power, but then the extension cord is really rather useless if I don't get something else plugged into it. So I try to do both every single morning. Plug in. I'm acknowledging I'm not the source of power. I'm really, not self-reliant at all. And as long as I connect and I'm seeking him to use me for his purposes, and then I immediately try and get other people to connect to me, that seems to work really well. And I don't seem to have anything go wrong that can't be fixed. And it just is a feeling of contentment and faith and trust and happiness and peace. And even really difficult challenges just seem to work themselves out if I'm connected. And the opposite is true too. If I don't get connected and stay connected, somehow it's like trying to hold 3 beach balls underwater with 2 hands. It just never seems to quite get in gear, and there's always this feeling of something's not quite right. But I don't have that at all when I get connected and stay connected. So that sense of purpose and all of the things he's used me for, which have been a lot, has come from that doing the steps, step 3 and step 11 specifically. So that's exciting to me to know. Like Dr. Paul, who wrote the story on acceptance, he was my sponsor for many years, for 9 years. And he wrote a couple of fantastic books, by the way. There's more to quitting drinking than quitting drinking, and You Can't Make Me Angry. Get him on Amazon. But he shared so much with me. And, he just said, we have a lot of people to help. And if you just submit yourself to be offered and just say, hey, use me, that amazing things can happen in your life. And they have in mind, and they just keep happening. It just never stops. It's unbelievable, really.
That's awesome. Well, as a student of 12-step history, it's very cool to hear that Dr. Paul was your sponsor. I got to hear him speak in Topeka, Kansas when I was in graduate school, and that was very, very cool. So I love for my guests to have the last word. I appreciate you bringing awareness of this idea of purpose. I asked every man this question, and what's been so cool is almost always I've gotten different responses. And so this is going to be up on my website and under Men in Recovery Project. I love that idea of balance. And I mean, think about it. Here we are, two men, and we're talking about the importance of self-care, and that self-care looks like things like meditation, listening to flute music, prayer, humility. It's such a beautiful shift in recovery where we can let go of some of that BS that says, one, take care of everybody other than yourself, which is actually one of the interesting rules for men, even though it's also one of the ones for women. It shows up differently for men. And then just this idea of like what I call all the time, this relaxed masculinity, where we can wear the armor of masculinity a lot looser, and we can do self-care, and we can talk openly about it, and talk about yoga, and talk about breathing, and talk about, all of that. So I want to thank you for all the work you do and have done. Your contribution and your being of service, is really a reputation that goes far beyond you. And I imagine you know that, but if you don't, you're very, very well respected, especially in the Arizona area, but outside of that as well, for your commitment to being of service and sharing and carrying that message of recovery. So I just want to really thank you for being a part of this project and for joining me on this, and especially again because I know how important Recovery Month is to you as well.
Thanks, Dan. And the Meadows is so fortunate and grateful to have you on board as a senior fellow. We're very excited about that, and I appreciate you doing this project. I appreciate you having me on. And I don't want to lose my man card. I do have a 75-inch high-def ultra big screen. And I do go to the gym, so I don't just listen to Indian flute music.
Don't ever talk about the man card on my shows.
Just kidding.
I know, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Right.
There's your balance. I mean, in all seriousness, there's your balance. You can have a ponytail, but you can also have a Ford F-150.
Okay. I had one when I got sober, Dan.
Oh, I bet you did. Hey, wonderful, Jim. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Dan.